So, folks, it was teased earlier this week that some balance changes are going to be heading to Hearthstone as early as next week. Probably the Hearthstone devs wanted a little more time in the ever-evolving Stormwind meta to see what needs an adjustment and then have at least, sounds like, a couple things planned. So that's a great opportunity for us to discuss some of the cards that might get changed and some of the cards you'd like to see changed. So, of course, share your thoughts in the comments below for the cards you think desperately need a nerf or cards you hope they don't nerf. Now, for me personally, I'm not really itching for nerfs right now, to be honest. I think this early meta is, I would probably pull Face Hunter down a little bit because I'm like sick of it, but I'm almost worried any major changes might mess things up more than they could help. So I'm not personally, recommending anything major, maybe just a tiny little tweak here or there. And the cards in this video are not my recommendations, to be clear. These are things I think are possible based on the data I'm seeing from HS Replay and the kinds of decisions Blizzard tends to make. These are not things I think should happen, nor do I think all of these things will happen. These are just possibilities. So yeah, up first is the Demon Seed. I think Blizzard could go right at the quest. Sometimes, when there's like a quest deck that's frustrating to play against, they adjust like other stuff so the quest remains unchanged. But I think the Demon Seed actually has some numerical values here that are pretty easy to tweak with the amount of damage that you take. So maybe just ratcheting that up by 1 damage for each step of the quest could help slow this down just that smidge, 1 or 2 turns here or there. And that's all you really need to sometimes give other decks that window to just kill the Warlock, making that balance between life and death a little bit more precipitous for the Warlock. I wouldn't go crazy and push this like 10 on the first step or anything like that, but I think 7, 8, 9 instead of 6, 7, 8 could make enough of a difference to keep this in a healthy spot. And again, the win rates for quest Warlock aren't crazy. They're somewhat balanced between like the Zoo and the more fatiguey version. Zoo is doing better, still not in a totally wild spot, but I know some people are frustrated by this. This also could have some positive impacts on wild, as I understand it. I think Pain Warlock stuff in wild is really good. I actually don't know if that's running the quest. It looks like it is. It's in 26% of wild decks. That's insane. So this would have a bonus in wild format as well. So moving on to Mage, I think we're just going to delete Incanter's Flow altogether. Just big X through it. We don't need to nerf it. Just take it out of the game. Moving on. No, I'm only partly memeing. I just thought it'd be funny to showcase this because I know how much people really hate Incanter's Flow. I think Incanter's Flow is one of those cards that probably needs touched. Much like Quest Warlock, Quest Mage can be pretty unfun to play against. It feels like you're just watching them play like 1,000 cards. It's not a very fun way to play when your opponent gets to do like a million things, do all this crazy powerful stuff. You just plop down like 1 card in response. So I wouldn't be shocked if Incanter's Flow got pushed to something like 3 mana, just to make it a little bit more awkward to play. I've seen some people suggest that Incanter's Flow should allow you to like select a spell school and discount only that school. That would be a really cool kind of card, but I don't envision Blizzard going that way. I think that's just a little bit too much extra work to like recode the fundamental function of the card, and it might lose the spirit of the card a little bit. But hey, if they go that route, that's awesome. I think that'd be a really cool way to do it. I think instead this one probably feels like it just get a mana change of some sort. I've heard people ask to remove the spell school as well, so this doesn't advance quest. I think that'd be weird. This pretty clearly looks like a arcane spell of some sort. So I think a mana cost is probably the easiest way to change this one. You could affect other cards in Quest Mage, like the quest itself, maybe pull Dawn Grasp down to like +2 spell damage, so the payoffs aren't as high. I've seen some people talk about Ignite, maybe pull down Ignite's base damage or make it cost 3 mana so it's more punishing. A few different directions you could go, but I feel like Incanter's Flow is sort of the root of all of this and the card that opens up the most feel bad moments, so I'd probably go after Incanter's Flow personally. So moving on to Shaman, as you saw teased there. A lot of complaints about Doomhammer and the amount of crazy damage that Doomhammer can pump out in combination with any sort of plus attack card, Rock Biters and such. Brucon could even like accelerate that more, doubling your Rock Biters and such for just obscene burst damage potential. And Blizzard has talked about removing damage from hand. So Warlock, Mage, and Doomhammer basically are the 3 things that are doing a lot of damage from hand right now in Hearthstone. So that's why I put those 3 up first. So pushing Doomhammer to 6 would just really help slow that down by a turn or two, and give other decks more time to stabilize, build out boards, make the Doomhammer a much riskier thing to actually commit to. Thought about maybe tweaking like the durability or something here, but the problem there is like this doesn't often need the 8 swings. It's the the first 1 or 2 turns of it, the first 2 to 4 swings of it where you're just really murdered by Doomhammer. It's often swings 3 and 4 once they've kind of equipped it and then had time to buff it that it goes really crazy. So I think mana is the best way probably to limit the speed of what Doomhammer can do. Now, interestingly, the decks running Doomhammer right now for Shaman aren't actually the best decks. The straight up elemental decks right now are a little bit better that aren't running Doomhammer. They're running like Whack-A-Knoll or Auction House Gavel instead of Doomhammer. That said, I don't think they're like as frustrating to lose to or don't have quite as much, you know, burn damage type scenarios. So there's a chance Blizzard nerfs something that's in both of those decks, like one of the key elementals or Primal Dungeoneer, or some card that's fueling both versions of Shaman. This card has a lot more sort of visibility. People complain about it a lot, you know, so the optics of this one might be better, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if some just, you know, elemental cog, maybe even cage match custodian that opens up these other lines of play that's good in both versions of Shaman. The more aggressive kind of Doomhammery ones and the more straight up elementally mid-rangey ones, that could be a possibility as well. So moving on to Alliance Bannerman for Paladin. Handbuff Paladin's looking pretty good, holding in at tier 1, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's like a fairly honest deck in the world of Hearthstone these days. It's not like crazy, you know, over the top damage. It's not like damage from hand or like hyper aggression. It's kind of a mid-range deck. Like, yeah, it's big stats. Yeah, it's crazy. There's a card in there we're going to talk about in a second that's kind of problematic. But so I don't really know if Handbuff Paladin is a problem. If that's like the number one deck, I feel like decks can beat that. I feel like there's ways to go under it. I feel like you can still kind of go toe-to-toe, removing the minions sometimes with the control decks. I'd be okay with that. That said, Bannerman, if you look at the stats for Handbuff Paladin, is really, really good. It's got just some crazy numbers for win rates and stuff in Handbuff Paladin. It looked like the standout for draw and win rate in the deck. Feels really good to play a curve, really opens up a lot of options. So pushing that to 4 would really slow this deck down. This would compete with First Blade of Ren essentially in that mana slot, making it kind of awkward to run both of those, which can be really powerful on curve, Bannerman into First Blade of Ren. So maybe moving this to 4 would be good. I don't think changing like the stat line would really impact this card enough. It's all about that battle cry that you care about. Feel weird to pull the stats down like 0-1 or 1-0 or something. So mana cost feels like the most obvious choice for the Bannerman, and this feels like the most obvious choice for Handbuff Paladin if you're going to nerf the deck. That said, this is a card that is in Handbuff Paladin and would be a great way to nerf the deck. This also is being played in some other stuff too, the Battleground Battle Master. It's a great follow-up finisher card for any deck that's running big stuff. Handbuff Paladin's big buff minions. It's getting tossed into some Quest Warlocks with Flesh Giants and stuff just to hammer face. A lot of decks are actually finding ways to use this as that big burst follow-up, which, hey, that's unsurprising. I thought this card was going to be nuts. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if it moved to 6 mana. I think, you know, this is one of those cards, and maybe it's even true with Bannerman as well, and perhaps I should have talked about this more with other ones, but some of these, if they push the cost up, I think it would actually be okay to bring the stats up with it. Like maybe you could make Bannerman a 3-3 instead of a 2-2, and you can make Battleground Battlemaster a 6-6 instead of a 5-5. Because it's not really the stats on these cards that matter so much as the battle cries. So you can still kind of keep them vanilla statish in that area, right? Or in line with those at least, where the stats and the numbers feel a little bit more symmetrical, but you just slow down the effect so that it's less likely to make a quick impact on the game. So moving Battleground Battlemaster to 6 mana, 6-6 or whatever, would probably be fine and help slow this card down. Might still get played, you know, it still would be a great top end for a lot of decks, but wouldn't feel like it's coming down quite so quickly. You'd have more time to react to the stuff on board before this gets dropped on your head. So next up is Face Hunter. I looked at Face Hunter a lot, and I just really can't figure out what card to nerf for Face Hunter. I thought a lot about Trampling Rhino. For me, that's the most frustrating card, but if you look at the numbers on it, it's like, it is kind of slower. It often gets buffed. Like, it feels too good. I'd make Trampling Rhino like a 5-4 or something. But I think Coldcar Pack Runner might be more likely to get nerfed. This is often what gives Hunter the sort of time and board that they can play Wrangler into Trampling Rhino safely. So if you take this out, maybe that kind of takes out the wind of the sails, so the hunter can't so safely develop those low tempo 4 drops into the big swingy 5 drops. So maybe Cold Core Pack Runner goes away. I wouldn't be shocked though if just a card like Aimed Shot or Piercing Shot, some kind of just raw damage output card gets hit instead, because that's like one of those cards that feels more relevant because it's the thing that hits you really hard in the head. So I don't know, something in Hunter is going to get nerfed maybe, because it's a really strong deck. It has been for a while. I think people are kind of sick of it. I don't know if it's Pack Runner. What do you think it should be? Share those thoughts in the comments. I'm personally very curious. So this one might surprise folks a little bit, but Void Touch Attendant, I think, has a pretty good chance of getting nerfed. They've got this like aggro Shadow Priest that's creeping its way up through tier 2, and it just seems to keep climbing day after day. It's kind of maybe leveled out as like the 6th deck or so based on the numbers I'm looking at right now. And Void Touch Attendant is a huge part of that. This card does so much for a 1-drop. It's got the great base stats for a 1-drop, and then just this enormous upside with how much extra damage it can chip through. Wouldn't be shocked if Blizzard pulled this one down just a little to keep aggro Shadow Priest. Just keep an eye on it, basically. And pulling it to 2 health might do that, making it just slightly easier for other decks to trade into or deal with. So it's less likely to get that 1 extra turn, maybe get that extra 2 or 3 chip damage in. Those little adjustments can make a not, enormous impact, but notable enough to keep a deck at a healthy spot, so that if you do nerf like a Face Hunter, if you nerf a hand buff Paladin, this doesn't just like rise to the top and dominate. You might want to also keep the sort of second tier stuff in mind as well. So don't be shocked if Void Touch Attendant actually gets an adjustment. This is a very powerful card. And then finally, for all my pro players out there, it's Il'gynoth. I think there's a possibility Il'gynoth gets nerfed. This is another one of those, like if you look at even Diamond through Legend stats, which I've got up on my other screen right here, Il'gynoth, Demon Hunter, OTK, Demon Hunter, Quest, Lifesteal, Demon Hunter, whatever you want to call it, is a 46% win rate deck. It is barely in tier 3. For a vast majority of the player base, this is not a concerning card at all. But if you look at top 1000 Legend, Lifesteal Demon Hunter is the 3rd best deck in the game and very nearly the 2nd best deck in the game. And if you filter that to the top 50 Legends somehow, it'd probably be the number 1 deck in the game, I'd guess. I don't know exactly, day by day it changes, but skilled players can do some crazy stuff with Il'gynoth, and it sounds like, from what I'm reading from the professional scene, a lot of them are kind of sick of OTK Demon Hunter being so relevant and so important. So maybe Blizzard could push Il'gynoth to some absurd mana climb to like 6. Frankly, I feel like the deck might still work with Quest discounting everything so much nowadays. But yeah, it's a possibility. I don't actually think they will. I don't know how much they care about the 1,000 people at the top of Legend versus the other million people's opinion. But it might be noteworthy if somebody cares enough about Grandmasters or very, very high level Legend play that this does get an adjustment, even if it doesn't affect most people hardly at all. There still can be some crazy moments. I just played a game where I got hit for 144 damage off OTK Demon Hunter. It's rare. Even in my ranks, I don't see it often. It doesn't bother me a lot, but there might be people who get really frustrated by those crazy pop-off numbers. So this is certainly a possibility. And yeah, there you go. This went way longer than I expected. My God, I had a lot to say about all these cards. You probably just skimmed through though. Maybe you hit the end here. What do you think? What would you nerf? What do you like here? What do you hate? What needs a change? What doesn't? I want to hear all that below. Again, these aren't recommendations. I think there's just possibilities based on the data I'm looking at, based on sort of sentiment among the player base that I hear. But I don't know if any of this really needs a change. I'd probably tweak Face Hunter and maybe Paladin, maybe Quest Warlock, maybe Mage, but very minor adjustments is all I would do. So anyway, share those takes down below. Thanks much as always for watching. Stay tuned for the nerf announcement whenever it hits sometime next week or so. And until next time, game on.